In the long, blood-stained scroll of human history, few punishments have been as disturbingly inventive or as horrifyingly slow as scaphism, the ancient Persian method of execution that transformed the human body into its own prison of decay. Known chillingly as the boats, this ritual of death was designed not merely to kill, but to humiliate, torment, and annihilate both body and spirit in a spectacle of unbearable suffering. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once warned, "He who fights with monsters should see to it that he himself does not become a monster." Those words find a dark echo in scaphism, where the line between justice and cruelty dissolves completely. To understand this nightmare, we must travel back to the heart of the Persian Empire, around the 5th century BCE, a realm that stretched from the mountains of Central Asia to the shores of the Mediterranean. The empire was vast, cultured, and powerful, but beneath its grandeur lurked a system of punishment as elaborate as its palaces. The word scaphism comes from the Greek scaphe, meaning something scooped or hollowed out. Even the term itself is a hint of the horror to come, because in this punishment, the condemned became trapped between two hollowed boats or tree trunks, sealed inside except for the head, hands, and feet that protruded helplessly into the open air. This was no mere execution. It was an ordeal meticulously crafted to last days, even weeks. One of the most infamous victims of scaphism was Mithridates, a Persian soldier who made the fatal mistake of boasting that he had slain Cyrus the Younger. The historian Plutarch, writing centuries later, described his slow demise with a historian's precision and a poet's revulsion. The scene unfolded in Persepolis, the ceremonial heart of the empire, where pageantry met cruelty. The condemned was first force-fed a mixture of milk and honey, so thick and sweet it clogged the throat and stomach. Then, his face and limbs were smeared with the same concoction, glistening under the relentless Persian sun. To the onlookers, it may have seemed almost ritualistic, a sacrifice wrapped in sweetness. But that honey would soon attract not blessings, but a swarming, living curse. Bound between the boats, Mithridates was set adrift upon a stagnant pond. The heat was merciless, the air thick with rot and flies. Within hours, the milk and honey turned his body into an open invitation for insects. The Greek physician Ctesias, who served at the Persian court, wrote that the eyes were often the first to go, devoured by buzzing black clouds that descended in waves. Day by day, the torment deepened. The victim's body, coated in sugar and sweat, began to fester. Diarrhea, caused by the forced feeding, flooded the confined space, and soon the smell of decay mingled with that of honey. Flies laid eggs in every open wound. Maggots wriggled beneath the skin, and the man, still conscious, still breathing, became a living hive of death. The executioners would return daily, not to end his misery, but to feed him again. More milk, more honey, ensuring that his suffering would not end too soon. Some accounts claim that victims could linger for up to 17 days, their sanity dissolving long before their hearts stopped. This was cruelty masquerading as order. The Persian kings, particularly Darius III, were said to reserve scaphism for crimes so grave that no quick death would suffice. Treason, sacrilege, betrayal, these demanded a punishment that echoed through generations. To kill the body was not enough. They sought to obliterate the soul. And yet, even among such calculated horrors, there was symbolism. In the empire's view, Scaphism served as both warning and theater. The suffering man drifting in a pond became a living sermon, an emblem of what awaited those who dared defy the king. As Roman philosopher Cicero once observed, the terror of punishment often keeps evil men in check. Scaphism, it seemed, was terror perfected. Over the centuries, historians from Herodotus to Xanaras would retell the story in grim fascination. Xanaras, writing in the 12th century CE, described the end of a victim's life in language that chills even now. The worms that bred in the putrefaction penetrated the body, consuming it in imperceptible progress. Thus, the victim died in the most abominable pain. It wasn't just the physical agony, it was the psychological collapse. Imagine knowing that your own body had become a nest for living things, that your death was being prolonged for the amusement of others. The loss of dignity, the complete surrender of control, those perhaps were the cruelest tortures of all. Even in modern times, echoes of scaphism resurface. The 2014 horror film The Pyramid borrowed its concept to terrify new audiences. And though the method has long vanished from the world, the fascination endures, a haunting reflection of how humans, in their darkest moments, sought to wield power not just through justice, but through pain itself. Because scaphism was never just about execution. It was a performance of dominance, a ritual of fear, and a reminder of how far we can fall when cruelty becomes spectacle. From the sun-scorched ponds of Persia, our journey through the theater of torment drifts forward in time to the cold, cobbled streets of medieval Europe, where a new symbol of punishment took shape, the breaking wheel. Known by many names, the Catherine wheel in France, the living wheel in Switzerland, it was both a tool of justice and a spectacle of horror. Imagine a wooden wheel, taller than a man, mounted on a sturdy post in the town square. Its purpose? Not transport, but torment. This was the Middle Ages' cruel paradox, a world obsessed with salvation, yet equally fascinated by suffering. Public executions weren't merely punishments, they were performances of divine order, where pain itself was proof of justice. The breaking wheel's origins reach back to ancient times, but its grim perfection emerged between the 13th and 17th centuries, particularly in France and Germany. Philosopher Voltaire, reflecting on Europe's bloody history, once remarked with cutting irony, "The wheel, the stake, the gallows, these were the punishments for crimes which did not deserve death." That was not exaggeration. The condemned would be stripped bare, then tied to the spokes of a massive wheel. Their limbs were stretched wide, forming a grotesque parody of the human form. Then came the executioner, often a man of great skill, trained to prolong pain rather than hasten it. With a heavy iron bar, he would strike, once for each limb, the bones cracking like thunder beneath the crowd's gasps. First the legs, then the arms, then the ribs. Each blow was deliberate, practiced, and unhurried. The aim was not to kill instantly, but to unravel the body piece by piece. As French executioner Charles-Henri Sanson, who served during the reign of Louis XVI, wrote in his memoirs, "The art of the wheel is to prolong the agony, to make death a thing of hours, not minutes." When the breaking was done, the mangled body might be woven between the wheel's spokes like a grotesque tapestry. Sometimes the wheel was raised upright and displayed in the square, the condemned left to die of thirst, exposure, or blood loss. In other cases, the executioner might deliver the coup de grace, a mercy blow to the chest or neck, ending what the audience called the lesson. Because make no mistake, the wheel was not just about punishment. It was a lesson for the living. In 1757, Paris witnessed one of its most infamous executions. Robert François Damiens, the man who had dared to stab King Louis XV. The breaking of Damiens became a national event. Thousands gathered in the Place de Grève as he was torn apart, piece by piece. Voltaire, who witnessed the horror, wrote later, "It is impossible to express the horror of the sight." Even hardened Parisians left shaken by what they saw. Germany, too, made the wheel its instrument of terror. Under the Constitutio Criminalis Carolina, Emperor Charles V's legal code of 1532, the wheel was reserved for crimes considered unthinkable: patricide, regicide, and blasphemy. Executioners followed strict patterns of fracture, ensuring that each blow corresponded to a specific offense. One notorious case, that of the serial murderer Peter Neers in 1581, showed the wheel at its cruelest. Over 3 days, Neers was struck 42 times before finally succumbing. Each morning, crowds gathered again, not from outrage but from morbid curiosity. In France, Cartouche, a legendary outlaw, met his end on the wheel in 1721 before an audience of 200,000. His execution became legend, immortalized in plays, songs, and even art. It was proof of a chilling truth that in medieval Europe, suffering had become a public entertainment, a way to affirm moral order by turning agony into theater. The name Catherine Wheel itself holds a strange irony. According to Christian legend, Saint Catherine of Alexandria was condemned to die upon such a device, only for it to miraculously shatter at her touch. The image of the broken wheel became a symbol of her sanctity. Yet centuries later, her miracle was twisted into a method of horror. The breaking wheel's reign extended far beyond France and Germany. In Scotland, it was used sparingly but brutally, as in the 1604 execution of Robert Weir, whose mangled remains were displayed for days. In Russia, the rebel leader Yemelyan Pugachev was broken on the wheel in 1775 by order of Catherine the Great, a spectacle watched by the young Alexander Pushkin, who would later immortalize the event in literature. By the dawn of the Enlightenment, however, the tide began to turn. Philosophers like Cesare Beccaria and reformers like Voltaire began to challenge the cruelty of justice through pain. Beccaria's On Crimes and Punishments argued that punishment should be swift, certain, and humane, not a ritual of torture. His words echoed through Europe, inspiring rulers like Catherine the Great and Leopold of Tuscany to abolish such torments. In France, the wheel was officially abolished in 1789, the same revolution that gave birth to the guillotine. The last man to be broken on the wheel in France was executed just a year before. In Prussia, the final use came in 1841, marking the quiet death of one of history's loudest horrors. Today, remnants of the breaking wheel can be found in European museums: Rothenburg's Medieval Crime Museum, Amsterdam's Torture Museum. Grim relics that force us to confront the darkness behind the gilded stories of Europe's past. And yet, its legacy lingers in phrases like "to be broken on the wheel," meaning to be crushed by hardship or despair. Because even as centuries fade, the image endures. A man bound to a wheel beneath an unfeeling sky, bones splintering one by one as the crowd looks on. In the next chapter, we descend further into the fires of invention and madness, where metal beasts roared and tyranny was cast in bronze. The story of the Brazen Bull awaits. If scaphism was death by decay, and the wheel was death by dismemberment, then the brazen bull was death by fire and sound, a machine of molten artistry designed to transform screams into music. The tale begins in ancient Sicily under the rule of Phalaris, the tyrant of Akragas, modern-day Agrigento, around the 6th century BCE. Phalaris was known for his greed, his paranoia, and his relentless need to dominate. In the words of the philosopher Pindar, he devoured his own people with the jaws of fire. Those words were not merely poetic, they were literal. According to Diodorus Siculus, a Sicilian historian, the brazen bull was the invention of a craftsman named Perillos of Athens. Phalaris had asked him to create an execution device worthy of a king, something that could both inspire terror and demonstrate the ruler's divine authority. What Perillos delivered was a masterpiece of horror, a life-sized bull, sculpted entirely from gleaming bronze, hollow within, its surface polished to a mirror's shine. The bull's flanks could be opened like a door, revealing an interior chamber large enough to hold a man. But it wasn't just the fire that made it monstrous, it was the acoustics. Perillos designed the bull's head with a system of tubes and resonating pipes, engineered so that the victim's screams would echo out through the nostrils and mouth, not as cries of pain, but as the roaring of a furious animal. So that, Perillos boasted to Phalaris, your punishment may delight the ear as well as the eye. The tyrant was pleased, too pleased. When the bull was completed, Phalaris invited Perillos to demonstrate its wonder. The inventor, proud of his creation, climbed inside to show how it worked. The tyrant ordered the door sealed and the fires lit beneath. As the bronze body began to glow red-hot, Perillos's cries turned to shrieks, and the pipes sang with a sound like the lowing of a beast. Phalaris, they say, laughed with delight. When the screaming ceased, the tyrant ordered the body to be thrown from the bull onto the rocks below. So ended Perillos, the first victim of his own invention. The brazen bull soon became infamous across the Greek world. In Athens, in Carthage, and later in Rome, whispers of its use spread like wildfire. To the Greeks, it became a symbol of tyranny's ultimate corruption, the moment when human cruelty transformed into mechanical art. But did it truly exist? Modern historians debate whether the brazen bull was real or allegorical. Some claim that Diodorus and later Lucian exaggerated to vilify Phalaris, while others point to archaeological finds of bronze chambers and effigy furnaces as proof that such devices could have been real. Whether myth or memory, the idea of the bull endured. In Carthage, where child sacrifices to the god Moloch were rumored to occur inside burning bronze statues, the image reappears, a terrible continuity of fire and faith. In later centuries, the story found its way into Roman legends too. The tyrant Nero, infamous for his cruelty, was said to have owned a similar device, and early Christian martyrs, like Saint Eustace, were depicted being roasted inside metal beasts as symbols of faith tested by flame. What makes the brazen bull uniquely horrifying is its fusion of art and agony. It wasn't enough to destroy the body. It sought to aestheticize suffering, to turn death into music, cruelty into performance. The Greek poet Pindar once wrote, "What is man, if not a shadow's dream?" In the glow of the brazen bull, that dream became a nightmare of brass and fire, a warning that brilliance without mercy births monsters. The reign of Phalaris did not end in triumph. His cruelty inspired rebellion. The people of Akragas rose against him, dragged him from his palace, and, by poetic justice, threw him into the very bull that had consumed so many others. Thus the flames that fed his tyranny devoured him in turn. In the centuries that followed, the brazen bull remained a metaphor, a symbol of tyranny's self-destruction. It appeared in Dante's Inferno, where sinners who delighted in torture are condemned to burn forever within fiery brass tombs. And in museums and modern art, replicas of the bull still stand, silent, gleaming, and hollow, echoes of a legend that reminds us of an ancient truth. When cruelty becomes spectacle, even kings become kindling. If the brazen bull was the music of pain, the Iron Maiden was its mask, a fusion of medieval myth and modern misunderstanding that turned into one of the world's most enduring symbols of torture. Walk into any European torture museum, and you'll likely find her there, a towering sarcophagus, cast in black iron, shaped like the body of a woman. Its hinged doors, carved with a serene or saintly face, open to reveal the horror within, a forest of inward-facing spikes, waiting to embrace whoever is sealed inside. For centuries, she has haunted nightmares and history books alike. But here's the truth: the Iron Maiden never truly existed in the Middle Ages. The idea of a spiked coffin appeared only in the 18th and 19th centuries, long after Europe had abandoned torture as a public act. Yet, the myth was so potent, so perfectly terrifying, that it was accepted as fact. Its legend began in Nuremberg, Germany. In 1793, antiquarians claimed to have discovered a medieval Iron Maiden used to execute criminals. Newspapers spread the story, and soon the Iron Maiden of Nuremberg became a sensation, a dark relic of supposed Gothic cruelty. But historians later discovered that this so-called artifact had been assembled from older pieces, centuries after the Middle Ages. The spikes were added later. The victims were imagined. The story, in short, was a hoax, but one that people wanted to believe. Why? Because it made the past seem darker and the present seem enlightened. Yet while the Iron Maiden itself was a fabrication, the torture it symbolized was all too real. Medieval Europe did employ devices of similar design: the coffin torture, in which victims were suspended in metal cages; the Judas cradle, which impaled by slow gravity; the heretic's fork, which silenced speech through pain. The Iron Maiden simply took all these truths and gave them a face, a grotesque feminine visage, cold and unfeeling. In a macabre twist of fate, the myth outlived its era. The Nazis, obsessed with symbols of power and fear, displayed a reconstructed Iron Maiden at the Nuremberg castle as a propaganda tool, proof, they claimed, of the cruelty of earlier ages. It was, ironically, used to justify their own. And so the Iron Maiden became not just an instrument of imagined torture, but a mirror of humanity's fascination with it. Artists, writers, and filmmakers resurrected her time and again, from Edgar Allan Poe's The Pit and the Pendulum to heavy metal album covers, because in every age, she represents the same truth: that humans are both creators and prisoners of their own fears. In the end, whether real or invented, the Iron Maiden is the ghost of every true torture device, the echo of the wheel, the bull, the boats, a falsehood born from countless real sufferings. And maybe that's why she endures. Because we don't just fear the cruelty of others, we fear the capacity for cruelty within ourselves. Epilogue: the anatomy of cruelty from Persia's boiling sun to Europe's gallows shadow. The instruments of torture remind us of something deeply uncomfortable. Violence is never just about punishment, it is about power. Each device, scaphism, the wheel, the bull, the maiden, was a reflection of its age. The Persian kings used torment to enforce divine rule. Medieval Europe used it to prove moral order. The modern age repackages it as entertainment, horror, and fascination. But beneath every age, one truth burns the same. The line between justice and cruelty is drawn not by law, but by conscience. As Nietzsche warned, beware that when fighting monsters, you yourself do not become one. And as long as humanity continues to look into the face of pain and find beauty, curiosity, or control, we remain forever on the edge of that abyss.